Seth Widener here. Today I'm going to show you how I built this coat rack with a shelf on top. Got 2 hooks for the adults and 3 hooks for the kids. This is all pine with most of the pieces coming from a pallet. Stay tuned, I'll show you how I made it. Here's some crate lumber and a pallet that I picked up from a local sign company. The pallet is 10.5 foot long and I used it for the majority of this project. You can see the pieces are pretty rough, so I had to run them through the planer and clean them up. These pieces are for the top and the bottom on the face. I ran them through the planer to smooth them out and thin them down. These came from a pallet as well. Here's one of those 10.5 foot pieces running through the planer. Just finished cutting the wood. I've got 1x4s that I ran through the planer. This is 42 inches tall and 30 inches wide and 34 inches wide on the top for the shelf. I determined the top and bottom after running these pieces through the planer and cutting them to length. Then I started drilling my pocket holes. On every other board on the back side, I drilled 3 sets of 2 holes, one each direction for each set. And now I'm going to flip it all over and start screwing it all together. Here you can see how I drilled 6 pocket holes in every other board. Once I flipped it over, I assembled it with 1-inch pocket hole screws. I didn't use any glue on this. The edges aren't perfectly straight, so I knew there would be a gap, and it doesn't really have to hold any structure together because the top and bottom pieces are really what holds it. This just keeps those middle pieces from flexing. Here I'm attaching the bottom piece to the front. I squared everything up, added some wood glue, spread the glue out, clamped it in place, and then attached it with screws through the back so that none of the fasteners show. I used 2 screws per board just to make sure there's no movement. Used lots of clamps to hold everything in place. 1 clamp per board this way, and then I used a pipe clamp across the whole thing to make sure it was the exact width. And then I moved to the top. The top piece is actually a little wider than the frame. This will support the shelf on top. What I didn't show is that I cut 2 angled pieces to be supports for the upper shelf, and then I used a 1x8 for the top shelf. And it was actually not a piece of pallet lumber, it was just a piece of 1x8 I had laying around. But I did the same thing here with a clamp per board and 2 screws per board. Here you can see the supports for the shelf and the shelf in place. I also added a French cleat to the back near the top and a strip of this 1x4 material down each side so that there was no gap visible behind it while it's hanging on the French cleat. And here you see I'm attaching the French cleat piece to the wall for the upper French cleat.
Put this down. Can I put this down?
Yes, you can put that down. What do you think?
Good.
Is it level?
Yeah. How does it stay? How does it stay?
It's sitting on that piece up there.
Oh.
I'll show you. We'll get another one here somewhere. Just in case. Can you hold this? It stays because it's on a French cleat.
Oh. Oh, that?
You see this?
Yeah.
See, look at here. See how that's cut like that? And this one's the other way? So it sits behind there and it holds it. Here I'm adding a second French cleat down low, just for some extra support, and also to hold the bottom against the wall in case the kids pull on it with their coats. Something I didn't mention earlier is I did sand this down and wiped on 5 coats of polyurethane. You can see here I'm adding a drywall anchor to the right side of this lower cleat because I didn't have a stud right there. This one's a little shorter than the upper one. I used double-sided tape for the lower cleat so that I could put it in position, then hang the shelf in place. Then it would be stuck to the back of the shelf in the right position so that I could drill my holes, then remove the double-sided tape and put screws in those holes.
That's how loud one or quiet one.
The bright one is going to hang it on the wall. Look.
Oh. It's magic.
It's magic! Daddy did it!
All that's left now is to hang the hooks. I marked my hole locations with a pencil, then pre-drilled the holes, and then screwed the hooks in place. I put 2 hooks near the top for my wife and I, and 3 hooks at the bottom, one for each kid. This should be a good place for them to hang their coats in the wintertime and their backpacks and whatnot. And here's the finished product. Thanks for watching. Feel free to leave me a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos.